All right, everybody, this is episode 3 of the Joe Eurell Show. I'm back again. I haven't been on this platform in like over 8 months, and that's because I'm a comedian or a podcaster, but I'm gonna bring back this. I'm gonna resurrect this platform, as it were, the Joe Eurell Show, and I have a exclusive guest today. Hello, Mark Harley, from TK Fighter
Fame, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Otherwise, he is the Duke of Reddit, and he, fitness motivator, weightlifting champion, Fabio impersonator. He does it all, and he's here today to be a conduit, and we're gonna interview him about sort of the journey that he's had over the past 2 years, since everything happened, and I'm gonna give my thoughts on the past 3 months of comedy, and we're gonna talk about where I've been too.
Yep.
And I think, what do you want to do first? Do you want to do the retrospect or talk about my painting first?
Second option.
Okay. So, yeah, you guys, I know a lot of podcast or a lot of comedians now will do podcasts, and that's what they do to make their daily living. That's not what I do, though. I'm a painter. It's bizarre as that sounds. Like, I paint, and my comedy career over the past year, it's been on some skids. And to be honest, Mark, like, it's been on some skids. Because last year I had a run-in with a bad producer, and I decided kind of to just be like, screw this. I'm going to go home and paint for a couple months, and that's what I did.
You seem to start beefs online with people.
Yeah, I was. What happened?
I said, not unlike myself, you start beefs online with people.
Yeah, I do have a reputation for that, but I think in some ways it's overplayed. But I'm gonna lean into it now, and if I got things to say, so I'm on here, and I've got a lot of stuff to say, but I also want people to know that, like, would you agree that the majority of what I post is art?
Yeah.
And that, I think it's interesting that whenever people see me post stuff where I'm making fun of Joe Rogan, or I'm like, lambasting somebody that they don't want me to talk about, they go, "Oh, you're so miserable," and it's really bizarre, because I'm like,
yeah,
of course I'm miserable. I look like I got run over by a fucking garbage truck, like,
the premise there is that you can't have a negative opinion about being miserable. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's like
that idea, especially when you're a comedian. Most jokes come from a negative, critical perspective. So if you're making fun of something, it's because you have an issue, a frustration, some sort of negative emotion surrounding it that you're making light of. So
yeah, and I've nobody's ever accused me of bombing on stage, but what they have accused me of talking about is in a metaphorical sense, I'm very apt to stand up for myself. And a lot of people don't believe me that I'm willing to stand up for myself. And I might not be able to in the literal sense, but I think you would agree that I'm pretty committed to, if somebody wrongs me, I'm going to call them out online.
Yeah, and I think that takes integrity. I think it takes balls, and I think that, as we discussed earlier before we started recording, sometimes there are consequences to calling people out. However, I think
Yeah.
the common thread between us is I will do it not to start drama. Like if I call out Isaiah Miranda or I call out Brendan Schaub, I go, it's not even just a personal thing. I go, it may have happened personally to me, but I've also witnessed it with at least several other people who don't have the platform or the willingness or the freedom, because some people do have harsher consequences potentially if they speak out against things. So I go, I'll do it. I'm the guy
Yeah.
who has less fucks to give about saying publicly that Brendan Schaub is a terrible boss and a piece of shit, narcissistic, pathological liar. And I can bring all the receipts and tell you that he, tried to fuck 200 different women while I was together and, underpaid me. And now I'm in a fucking court case with him where the state of California says he owes me $150,000 and he's lying to his lawyers about, me basically like trying to claim that I never worked for him and doesn't realize that like I have all the fucking evidence of that. With Isaiah, he wouldn't credit me on YouTube despite the sketches I did with him racked up easily 500 million views. I mean, the top 6 that we did together on just on YouTube Shorts, which he
Right.
didn't put a handle on, amounted to 200 million views. So imagine something you do has 200 million. Nobody can click on your YouTube handle. That was just one thing amongst many other things, but it's like it wasn't me that it had an issue. It was like issue after issue after. If you push me, I don't want to make drama. And in both these cases, I made private attempts to call them out. In Brandon's case, I said, "Hey, man, I feel like you're being disrespectful towards me, and I have a litany of issues with you, like because you're pushing me. We started out as friends. Now I'm working for you, and I work my ass off, and I'm a good employee. You're treating me like a fucking dickhead, like I'm a piece of shit, and you are just straight up disrespecting me." And he goes, "How so?" And I go, "Boom, boom, 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 like bullet point list." And he goes, "I'm sorry you feel that way. I guess we should part ways." I go, "Bro, like that's the biggest pussy fucking response I could ever imagine you doing." And same thing with Isaiah. We had issues and I laid everything out and left him a super like thorough voice note after this. Like it's more of a difficult story to tell, like about what led up to us like not working together, and where part of this was credit, part of it was like you're on YouTube making a shit ton of money off the work that I do. You do paid advertising, so you're getting like $8,000 to make a fucking ad for Quest Protein, paying me zero, and doing that a dozen times. And the moment I bring up money, you get fucking weird about it, and like it makes me feel weird because like I'm sorry, did I not like teach you how to do comedy in 2021? Because I've been acting. I took my first acting class in 2002. I've been doing online sketch comedy since 2010. I'm your fucking OG. I wrote your first sketch, and I've since done 300 plus of them with you and racked up 1 billion views along the way across multiple platforms. And you're treating me like I don't deserve a share of this fucking pie? Go fuck yourself. But it wasn't just about me and him. It wasn't even just about that. He stole a sketch idea from my wife and didn't credit her. He disrespected multiple friends of mine with like credit and payment issues. So when it gets to that point where I go like, I will call people out as you do for the sake of a moral good. It starts as something personal, and you can't have access to your wheelchair on stage, but you're not the only person affected by that. And it's a general moral cause that you're willing to stand up. I know I'm in the right. I might have consequences for it. I might look crazy to some people, or people say you look too negative online. I go, I don't give a fuck, because guess what?
It's a very negative world.
I said.
It's a very negative world. That's kind of my response to people.
Yeah.
Like,
and I don't mind exposing people. Like you're exposing people. I will live and die by like you want to be a fraud or a fake or pretend like you have, in your case, wheelchair access to a place where you're up to code or whatever it is. If you're pretending to be doing the right thing in public and in private, you're not. You deserve to be called the fuck out. And a lot of people are going to put pressure on you to not do that. But to them, I say, suck my dick, bitch.
Yeah, I wish I could give double deuces. One day though, I'm gonna get tattoos on my wrists, and then I'm gonna just do it that way. But you know, I can relate because I had there are like 3 or 4 reposts of my roast battle with Robin Tran with that have been got millions of views, but they never tagged me. And I kind of laugh about it in my own way because I'm kind of a lefty, and like the broker I am, the more right I am about capitalism being rigged against me. So I'm
Right.
the less money I have, the happier I am. Because I'm right.
That's, I mean, look, is this fucked up?
Yeah.
Like, it's because, again, you know, a lot of what's funny is, you know, I'm a professional actor. I've done over 30 TV. I've been in several films. I've been in a dozen national commercials, whatever. I'm not saying I'm in the acting world. What's that?
Are you SAG-AFTRA?
Yeah, of course.
Awesome.
I've been after for fucking 15 years.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, I do national commercials. I've shot a bunch of TV shows. When you, and I've been on a million different sets, okay? People, these influencers these days and these fucking amateur comedians, the way that they do bullshit and tag people on YouTube, it's like, do you realize when you're on a professional production, not only is everything, it's like you got hair, you got makeup, you got the DP, you got the script supervisor, everybody has their job. Everything's so fucking organized. You get a call sheet, you get a script, you get like everything is just done. There is a Hollywood system that fucking works for its efficiency and it's the specificity of each task delegated to the person who can do it best. When these influencer dumb fucks try to go out and make content and they can't even tag you.
Yeah.
When you watch the end credits of a movie, every PA is tagged. Like every PA is listed in the name. Like, so when somebody posts something, and I've had this happen before, I had a TikTok that somebody else shot me that did 50 million views and they didn't put my fucking handle in it. I'm like, are you retarded? Like, are you fucking stupid? Like, that's the most basic thing you can do to thank someone or give them credit is just put their name or handle in the thing. And so when you can't do that, it's just like, bro, like I have no respect for you. You have an IQ of 60, you know?
I got a litany of follow-up questions. But yeah, I'll just say really quickly that I guess what really kind of hurt me was the fact that people I worked with in roast battle, you know, were saying things behind my back like I'm grandstanding, you know, and which is an interesting word to use about somebody in a wheelchair grandstanding. But I would put it like I would put it like in the phrase that like, hey, on Halloween 2022, I was an invited performer in the main room of the Comedy Store, and they did not treat me with the due courtesy of an invited performer, and that's, you know, and people like Frank, it's, you know, people like, you know, other people in roast battle, you know, it started saying things about, you know, oh, you know, you're grandstanding, you got your own agenda. I'm like, well, like I've been going to this show for like 6 years, and none of you have brought it up to the venue that I have to show up with 2 wheelchairs. And then I just realized that like I'm the hell out of here. But I burned a lot of bridges, and I gotta call myself out here. I was wrong in a lot of ways. I treated people, and in part because I was dealing with grief all around. I let it poison how I interacted with those people, even though they legitimately wronged me. But so I can certainly relate. I can certainly relate. But I got a lot of follow-up questions for what you said. First and foremost, how did Brendan Schaub react to you using the word litania? Like, did he have to look it up? Like, was there a 5-minute break so he could look up litania? You said litania, and I'm assuming he probably had to pause and, like, when you say litania,
I don't remember saying that, but I like.
Did you have to dumb down your vocabulary? Because
Brendan is not like, he's just, again, I don't mind dumb people. The worst kind of people are dumb people who think that they're really intelligent. So Brendan would say things to me like, he'd acknowledge my intelligence and say things like, "You're top 5 smartest guys I know." And I'm like, to that, I'm like, then no more people, because I shouldn't be. Like, like, I'm smart, but like, I know real fucking smart people. My brother's a math and computer science PhD, for example. Yeah, I went, I have a number of friends who went to Harvard Law, another Yale, like Yale Medical School, Stanford Medical School. Like, I know smart people. Like,
yeah,
I'm aware of my place on the intellectual ranking of things, but it's like, if you're telling me I'm the top 5 smartest guy you know, then you should know some more fucking people, because I don't know what. But then also, it was a funny irony, because it's like, and then you treat me like I'm a fucking idiot. You know what I mean? But yes, to speak to Brendan is to walk on eggshells, because he's somebody who is, like any narcissist, both needlessly critical in a very bullying sense. He loves to punch down. I always say that, like, to Chris D'Elia, who he worships, I always said this. Chris, if they were to say on a podcast, if Chris D'Elia turned to him on the Golden Hour and said, "Brendan, you're the least funny person I've ever met, and you're also, and I hate you, and don't ever want to see you again, and like, you're a terrible dad," Brendan would go, "Chris Lee is so funny." So
that's
same with Joe Rogan, whatever. He blows on people who he perceives to be socially above him. However, he is the biggest fucking dick, especially in text message. He's a text message tough guy. So a lot of times, like, you'll see him be an asshole to Brian Callen, for example, because he perceives his power to,
which is really not good, because Brian Callen, I'm probably related to Brian Callen in some ways, because we have similar body types, and we're literally, the part of Ireland my family is from, it's literally called Callantown.
Yeah.
And so we're
a funny person in the dynamic. Yeah. I don't think he even understands how funny Brian is. Like, that this is, again, like, he just doesn't have the respect, because he, like, got grandfathered into, who the fuck is a comedy special after 2 years of doing stand-up. It's like playing football for a month and being like, here's an NFL contract. It's like, it doesn't happen. And so you can't possibly have the respect for the process by which every other comic in the history of stand-up comedy has gone through the open mic humiliation process to get to the point where they're doing real shows and then getting paid and then getting passed and then going on tour and building on stuff. He was gifted a fucking set of sold out shows because of the popularity of a podcast that he could then perform stand-up with, a guy who's already established himself as a multi-decade comedic actor and professional stand-up comedian. So, like, he has no concept of, like, what he fucking doesn't bring to the table, right? Which is just always the worst type of person. In his mind, he thinks he's fucking hilarious. In my mind, he relies completely on, like, making fun of how people look, punching down, being a needless dick, and telling other people that they're not interesting, and having terrible, uninformed political takes. That, like, he's like the most, like, basic fucking MAGA retard. Like, and I'm not saying that all people who vote for Trump are like this. I'm just saying he has no. I'm a poli-sci major, right? So.
Oh, me too. Hell yeah, bro.
Yeah. So, yeah, pound it out. You and I think about politics probably just in a different way, because I think about it in the context of history and economics, and the Overton window of every single country is different. And like, there's so much. Politics includes this umbrella of different social sciences and disciplines.
And it goes in lulls too. Like, we're in a decline right now where like nobody talks about policy. It's all vibes. It's 100% vibes.
Which is fine if you cop to that, you know what I mean? But like, Brendan is just, and politics is one of these places, like, for example, like Jordan, I like Jordan Peterson when he's talking about psychology and psychotherapy and like Jungian, like archetypes and like mythology and stuff like that. I'm all in. When he talks about politics, what people do is confuse their expertise in one field with expertise in all fields. So it's like, just because you're very educated and a professional in the field of clinical psychology doesn't also make you an infallible political expert. And a lot of people made that confusion. Brendan knows a lot about MMA. Some people think he doesn't because he seems to like make every fight prediction fucking the opposite of what ends up happening. But I'm just saying, he's one of these guys who like thinks he understands politics, and it's like, you know, fuck nothing.
I gotta be honest. I have so many follow-up questions. Well, one of them being that, like, about Chris D'Elia. I've said many times on all 3 episodes of this noted podcast that I've never liked him. He looked at me several times at the Comedy Store like he had never seen a disabled person in real life, and he was utterly disgusted. And to the point where the 3rd time it happened, I was like, "Yo, you have a problem?" And he like looked away, like, and it's really interesting because, but no, I was just gonna say that I wouldn't mess with Brian Cowan because he's small, but he's dangerous. He's got a crazy look in his eye. But
he's busy.
Yeah. I mean, he'd sneak up on you like an anaconda.
Well, he knows some jiu-jitsu and he knows some boxing. Out of all the guys there, I don't know. Brendan loves to pick on him, and it's always funny because people will be like, "Brendan can fuck you up." I'm like, he had plenty of chances to like tussle with me whenever the fuck you wanted to. He was always like doing his little BJJ wrestling takedown, like kind of like bullying activities to smaller guys. But for whatever reason, he didn't want to do it to me because I'm, a heavyweight high school wrestling champion. So maybe, you don't want to try to get fucking like a single leg on me and then I end up taking you to your back.
Is Brendan aware of the Chris D'Elia allegations?
Of course he is. Chris Lee is a goddamn, and I'll just say this: I'm not going to say anything critical about Chris because Chris has always been kind to me personally, and I try to judge people and speak on what I've experienced directly, and I cannot corroborate any allegations that were made against him. I think personally treats other human beings who are socially beneath him better than Brendan Schaub does. Like,
wow.
I truly believe that, and I've seen it in person times. I think he treats his employees better. I think he has a better reputation professionally. I just think he's better at comedy by a million miles than Brendan Schaub, and he obviously has flaws and addiction issues, and I'm sorry that you've had these personal issues with him. However, my with him have been very pleasant and always left me feeling like he was more generous to me and more thoughtful than a guy like Brendan Schaub. Perhaps that's a low bar, but I'm just saying I have nothing negative to say about Chris D'Elia.
That's pretty telling in and of itself that, compared, Chris D'Elia, even with the YouTube documentary notwithstanding, which I kind of just feel like where there's smoke, there's fire, but like,
Chris even just the admission, like when he went on like Soft White Underbelly, or him addressing it in his latest special, like whatever degree, maybe you want people go like to take it further, or he's denying certain allegations that they're not whatever it is that you want, that you need him to be and self-flagellate. What he does do that Brendan is scared shitless of is being fucking real, or at least trying to give the appearance. Brendan, everything Brendan says on stage, every single story about his family or his like grandma who doesn't speak English, who actually speaks perfect English and is like hot, but he like makes her out to be this abuelita, and like when you get to know him, you're like, everything you say on stage that you pass off as like, this happened to me the other day. It's like he takes his behavior and then puts it on another person who's the asshole in the story. And I'll be like, wait, did that happen? He's like, oh, well, I was the one who said it. I'm like you're a heel, dude. You don't realize it. Like, you're trying to be this likable guy, and everyone else, like, his comedy to me revolves around like the theme of all his comedy to me is, look how stupid, crazy, weird, and incompetent everyone else is, and look how cool I am. And I have to deal with this world full of crazy, stupid, incompetent employees, family members, children, coworkers. And like, look at me, cool guy with a haircut and a Ferrari, you know?
It's really interesting because a lot of people might be surprised to know this, but like when Brendan Schaub first started comedy, I did not want to hate on him for being new to comedy. I think there's way too much of that in comedy. It's really like, I have no bigger respect for somebody who tries to do comedy.
I couldn't agree more, because it takes balls. You shouldn't be judged when you're trying something out. It's an unfair thing to look at somebody. It's hard when you're already famous and trying comedy. However, he had 7 fucking years to figure it out, and I've witnessed him just be lazy about the process while claiming to do the hardest work in the room. By comparison, a guy like Chappelle Lacey listens to every set he does.
Oh, dude.
Every joke. Like, he perfects and he tweaks and he masters his craft. Brendan, the moment he thinks he gets a joke, like, he words a joke, it's a loose premise, he does it on stage, it gets a chuckle, it's then cemented. He never listens to his own sets. He doesn't record. He doesn't tweak. I could edit. Like, I had to actually edit. He'd do like these new bits, and it'd be like 5 minutes. He started having me edit them because he'd send them to his editors, and they'd be like, I don't know how to get it from 5 minutes down to 90 seconds. I go, well, I'm a professional writer, so I can do it. It's just like,
you're going to have to splice the audio.
I'm a rhythm editor. I know how to like take, like, it's like video editing as like writing editing, where I go, I'm going to take out all the superfluous language. What you notice with Brendan is he repeats. He takes way too long with the setup. He does, like, his joke writing and efficiency is horrendous.
CTE.
And that's part of, right. But it's just also laziness. So say CTE, but it's like, what you are is a lazy comedian who thinks that doing multiple sets in a night is hard work. The hard work of comedy is self-reflection and editing your own material and going, how can I make this funnier? Because Shane Gillis gets off stage after crushing in front of 10,000 people, and I've heard this from Chappelle Lacey. The first thing he'll say after getting a standing ovation in a theater is go, fuck, I need to work on that middle part. That is the mentality of an artist. The mentality of a narcissist is to go, oh my God, people laughed. I'm amazing. I don't need to change anything. If you don't like it, you're a hater.
I'm never happy with, when I go up, and it's interesting that you say that, because I'm gonna pull back the curtain a little here, and I actually a long time ago sent you rewrites of like, hey, I saw this Brendan Schaub joke, and I was like, I always compared this guy to like a blind kid playing T-ball. Like, he gets so close to, and you're like, come on, bro, just a little bit to the left.
Right. Here's the thing. I don't know if I communicated this time, but it's like, that's a great analogy. The idea that anybody could come to Brendan and give him advice on comedy, his level of arrogance is so off the fucking charts that he would take personal offense, especially to somebody who he perceives to be down the social chain from him.
So you're saying what? Let me run a hypothetical by you.
He's uncoachable. He's simply uncoachable. Otherwise, he's a millionaire. Why wouldn't he hire writers? Why wouldn't he hire a speech therapist? You have a disability that affects your ability to speak. You speak more clearly and coherently than Brendan Schaub. Do you realize that?
And it's funny because I was somebody who got in trouble throughout my whole childhood playing hooky at speech therapy. I'm like, I don't want to go hang out with this weird person, but I would just, let me run a hypothetical by you. So if somebody in a wheelchair, very crippled like me, were to go up to somebody who's very athletic, a beast of an athlete or whatever, and I were to say to him, yeah, like whatever he calls himself, he plays throwing ball. Like, and by the way, I just want to say, as a disabled person, I have a certain affinity for MMA fighters because I think they secretly want to be disabled because they're disabling themselves for no reason. For what is the economic?
That is true. That is true. You're going like, hey, I'm I want to make a living getting fucking
for like
face, but like kicked in the most vulnerable parts of my entire body repeatedly.
But these guys view themselves as like the peak physical alphas, and I'm like, if you were a physical alpha, you would never put yourself in this needlessly vulnerable situation. You know what I mean? For what it's for, this is the one reason I like Brendan Schaub, and you can ruin it for me if you want. But I want to drill down on this hypothetical. But what would he do if somebody with cerebral palsy literally went up to him and was like, "Here are better jokes, do them"? Would he would probably glaze over and like overheat, right?
He would take the path of least resistance, which would be to say as little to you to be polite and end the interaction, making you believe that he would entertain it, and then turn around and say something extremely rude and condescending and like needlessly mean to the other people around him to reestablish the fact that he is above you. And I've done that many times. Many different fans, like fans that come up and meet him and like talk to him, and it's like he's being nice to them, and then he turns around and says, "God, that guy's fucking annoying." I'm like, yeah, man, that's that guy and the other guys who are your fans are the reason that you make them. So
that's kind of the reason I have the trouble with the whole sort of group that Brendan is associated with. But I will say, so that thing about him when he calls out Dana White, right? About because I'm a pretty hardcore lefty, and I agree in principle that like Dana White is fucking these guys. Like
but his issues with Dana White go way deeper than that, and you saw when he got fucking super triggered when Dana White when Brendan said something about like, oh, there was a conspiracy to have Hamza miss weights that he wouldn't fight Nate Diaz and the fights would get moved, like, and somebody said they mentioned the conspiracy, and Dana White thought they were talking about that Pat Miletich said this conspiracy, and he's like, that's the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, Pat Miletich needs to get his fucking brain checked. He needs to go like to the fucking Brain Institute and do all, and like went off. And then someone goes, oh, actually Brendan Schaub said it. And all Dana White said was, well, that makes sense. And Brendan Schaub went nuclear. He did, like, he posted the people accused me of writing this, and I was like, I would never write the way that he writes because he's like, you're a fuckboy and like you dress shitty. I'm like, these are the lamest like 13-year-old insults, first of all. And then he like did a whole week at the Ontario Improv where he's like doing a bit about like how Dana White sucks and like how like, why are you picking on me? And it's like,
is he afraid of him?
all who nobody likes, and like you
It's,
in the UFC, like you got knocked out like 5 fucking times out of your last 6 fights or whatever it was. It was like you're like, yeah, technically at some point you were a top 10 fighter. Like you can't take that away from him, but you ended on some terrible notes. You like, as Rogan pointed out, had 1 foot in, 1 foot out. As a guy who trains people for a living, I've seen him train hundreds of times. By way of example, Chappelle Lacey, former D1 cheerleading athlete, right? That guy does not quit. If I tell Chappelle to do something, he fucking does it or doesn't trying. Brendan Schaub, however, finds shortcuts and quits and doesn't want to be there. So the idea that he's like the hardest worker in the room that he self-promotes is actually complete bullshit. He pushes out, he quits, he doesn't have the mentality to be a professional athlete or comedian, but postures as such. And postures that he's not naturally gifted, but he works so hard. Actually, it's the opposite. You were gifted a fucking 6'4", 260-pound body.
Yeah.
You're also gifted a comedy fucking career, and you flushed it down the toilet because you're an entitled fucking prick who's actually lazy as fuck.
I mean, he got set up as Ringo Starr, and he came out thinking that he was George Harrison. But I wanted to say about Chappelle Lacey that I've done several shows with him, and I just gotta say he's such a great comedian that when he goes on stage and starts doing his jokes, the whole room, the whole energy changes, and it's like I tell people this all the time. The best comedians out there are not the millionaire famous people you know. They're people you barely know, you might have heard of proliferally, and including Joey Diaz. I think Joey Diaz is one of the best comedians out there ever. But like,
I couldn't agree more. That you're and Chappelle Lacey is a great example of that. I think there are more examples like that. I just happen to have seen Chappelle perform 100 times.
Yeah.
And I've seen him demolish rooms. I've seen him do like tweak his set over time and rearrange things. He calls me probably once a week and we talk about comedy and just it's his everything. He also is very about music, but to him versus a guy like Brendan Schaub and some of the like Brendan Schaub was able to make it despite this, but if you were to just try to get into doing open mics just because you wanted to be famous for comedy, you'd never succeed. You can be gifted this and be driven by fame, and then it'll slowly decline like Brendan did because he doesn't have the work ethic. Chappelle lives and dies by his comedy. He cares desperately about it. It's his life. He has a gift for it. I will tell anybody, go see fucking Chappelle. And I defy you to not be a fan of his afterwards. He's fucking incredible, and he's destined for stardom. And he's started to get some of that recognition. You know what I mean? Like, he's arena tours with Bert Kreischer. You know, he's crushed fucking, you know, it shows with tens of thousands of people in attendance. And he's that good. And he's just a humble guy. He's an introvert. He doesn't draw a lot of attention to himself. So you wouldn't know. He's not in person trying to be the center of attention and trying to be the typical like comedian archetype of like always needing attention. He's chill, but when he gets on stage, it surprises a lot of people because he fucking crushes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different kind of energy that he brings on stage, and I got to say, a lot of people disagree with me, and I've said that's the way I judge a comedian is how I've seen them live, and not necessarily like watching Netflix special, because a lot of the Netflix specials are like Michael Bay movies to me. They're overproduced. But
just let me give you one example.
Yeah.
I remember seeing Theo Vaughn live a couple times. I actually saw him back in 2009 when he was just starting. I was like, oh, it's the Road Rules guy. I saw him at the Improv Comedy Lab. But I saw him this last year do a set. I've seen him do a couple live sets, like where he's at his current stage, and incredible live sets.
Oh yeah, he's
His
another
next
guy.
special, it like, to the average person, they're gonna think it's funny. But what I notice is he rushed his pace because I feel like he felt under pressure, and part of his magic is his really slow pace, where he goes, "Man, what else is going on? Black people are doing good.
Yeah, yeah,
My sister got bit by a gay dude," and he just like, so like there's a southern slow drawl to what he does that if you speed it up a little bit, it robs it of the magic. And so I felt like he
yeah.
was like, it's
I
like he
get.
was a little too high energy, and some high energy, like Jim Gaffigan doesn't work if he's trying to be high energy. Anthony Jeselnik doesn't work if he's trying to be high energy. Theo Von needs to be low energy, and that's where he's lulling you into his poetry. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
I've seen
I,
specials where I'm like, this person is way better live than their special represents.
I just gotta say it's somebody from the South who moved to California when I was 12. You know, the entertainment industry always tries to tell you to downplay the Southern accent,
Yeah,
and
at
it's
least
yeah,
he was not doing. When I first saw him in 2009, he was doing none of the shit that he's doing now, and it was like he was good. You know what I mean? Like I was like, I could tell this guy's funny, but the way he retooled himself by being authentic and leaning into his exact uh, quirks and eccentricities
yeah.
has made him one of the best comedians on the planet by being completely authentic.
Oh yeah,
Even as
yeah.
people are telling you do the other thing because we can't cast you as a guy with a southern accent. And he put his middle finger up to those people, and now he's got one of the biggest podcasts in the world and fucking does, sells out theaters in whatever fucking city he wants to go to.
Can you tell me, speaking of Theo Von, was that as acrimonious as it looked like his exit?
Yeah, I think he did it pretty diplomatically, but I
Yeah,
was
yeah, very gentlemanly.
he did it diplomatically, but my read on the situation was it was killing him to be around Brendan every fucking week because like he was doing it for the money. And he made reference to that in a podcast at some point. Like, I don't know if you ever saw this, but there's a clip that went on like Reddit where he goes, um, man, yeah, I just feel like a weight's been lifted where you sometimes you just do stuff for money, but your heart it's not really in it, and yada yada. And I'm like, obviously he's talking about King of the Sting, but Brendan would always frame, before I met Theo, Brendan would frame him as, oh, Theo's difficult to work with. He has mental illness issues. He doesn't show up. He's like cheap. He has like weird money issues, like blah blah blah. Then one time, this is a really funny story. He had a conversation. Like for some reason, Brendan likes to put me on speakerphone when he has like private conversations. Like I remember when the creative director quit Thick Boy, and like it was like around this time, it was like between Christmas and New Year's. So like not like this date, but it was like it would have been a few days ago in like 2022. Between Christmas and New Year's, and like nobody's coming to the office. I came in to like finish like editing some stuff, and it was just me and him, and then we are gonna go on a hike. And he'd had a blow up with the creative director because again he abuses employees. He like overworks them and underpays them. So at some point you just like they snap, right?
MP's
There was
in the sink.
there were yeah, exactly. Well, actually, and the creative director specifically was the guy who was like, can you please stop pissing in the sink? It's disgusting. Because I don't give a fuck personally, but like some people are germaphobes and just like have different preferences for like not having urine like on a plate where they like pass by all the time. So it was like this simple request where Brendan almost like made it a point to just disrespect this guy who is in his own right. Like he was holding it all together at Thick Boy. Like the guy's a legit filmmaker, super talented in all aspects of production, can write, can direct, can produce, like has great ideas, super hard worker, was on call all the time to put out all of Brendan's fires, like was responsible for everything, and was underpaid. And Brendan thought he was like overpaying him. Anyway, they hop on the phone and have this like talk. And Brendan's like, yeah, I know. Like, he starts off with like, I know you don't want to like, maybe, you know, you want to get back to working in film and podcasting isn't your dream. And I understand, like, you want to get, he goes, oh, no. I'm totally cool working in podcasting. The issue is you, Brendan. You're the worst boss I've ever had. And I remember I had headphones on and I was at my computer editing like some Photoshop stuff, and I didn't have any music playing, but I had to pretend like I was listening because I was like, I started to hear a conversation that was so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Wouldn't accept, like Mike kept having to repeat. I'm sorry for using his name, but he kept having to be like, you're the worst boss I've ever had. And Brendan's like, oh no, like it's like it was going in one ear and out the other. And no, it's you. You're a terrible boss. I repeat, you're a terrible boss. And so I start panicking, and I'm like, I actually put on music so that I couldn't hear anymore, and like I could focus on like on an excuse to like, or he could like when I did this, because he ended the phone call and he's like, did you just hear that? I was like, wait, what? Like, huh? So like it bought me more time to be like, no way. He said you're a terrible boss. That's crazy. Like, obviously you're a great boss. Like, this guy's insane. And then the next day, Brendan started going around saying, oh, I fired this guy because he just cost me too much money. I'm like, that didn't happen. I was on the next to you while you were on the phone. The guy quit and said, you were the worst boss of all time. So he immediately reframed the narrative in the complete opposite way. Similarly with Theo, remember that podcast one situation that was going down?
Oh yeah, I have a question about that because I'm a big time Cornette fan, and
Yeah.
Cornette was very let's shall we say very transparent about.
Yeah, I listened to that episode actually. That was my first introduction to Cornette. Somebody sent me that and it broke down the whole situation, and I go, oh, I'm connecting this dot because 6 months prior to that, another conversation that Brendan put me on speakerphone with was with Theo. And Theo was like, hey, bro, like this money situation with the podcast one is fucked up. Like, I don't know who the fuck is running like the money or the sales or whatever.
Pumping up.
The money isn't coming in right. These payments are late. The payments are missing. They're underpaid. Like it was like an hour-long conversation where Theo was like ripping Brendan and being like, basically like, the summation of his criticisms were you're a bad businessman who's incompetently running the financial aspect of your company. And Brendan he's like, Theo's like wrong and he's just difficult and he's like cheap. And like, so he had all these excuses and sort of insults to dismiss Theo's highly accurate assessment of what the fuck was happening in real time 6 months to a year before it like became a public story
With Cornette. Cornette.
So I would be like, I'm sitting there like quiet as Theo is like, yo, bro, we got a problem on our hands. Like, there's all this money missing. Like, who the fuck is your business manager? Because my dude like can tell you that like there's 18 different checks missing. This one's wrong. This one's late. This is not coming in. Like, it's a complete shit show. And just from a professional standpoint, like you need to address it, and you're not, and like you're pretending like it's okay, and you're the one who got us into this because you introduced us to this guy and said it was all good, so fucking fix it.
I have a $1 million question that this is kind of the reason that I was trying to the way I understand it, when they went from Podcast One to whatever the other company that they were trying to like do the IP and do a pump and dump, they were trying to get Cornette to take the deal where they would pay them, a certain percentage left of what they owed them, but they were gonna have to like.
I don't know if the word is blackmail or coercion or
it was,
but it's basically like, hey, take this or get fucked.
It was like a Hail Mary thing because they knew the jig was up, and what
I needed everyone to do it at once. It was like if everyone might have done it at once and joined forces, yeah, we could do this. But Cornette was like, "Go fuck yourself, bitch."
Yeah, and everybody else did too. And I'm wondering, I guess, for lack to put it plainly, and so we're all speaking hypothetically and allegedly, and hypothetically, of course. I've always felt like that was something that somebody like Brendan Schaub could be talked into being a party to if those people were trying to rip off their podcast shows. I mean,
because Brendan is naive. He thinks he'll refer to himself as a business shark. He's very naive.
He's a minnow.
If you walk in, like I remember he like hired this Instagram guru because I used to run his social media, and I made this woman cry when he put us on a group chat because I was asking him basic questions. She's like, "Oh, she's gonna fix this and that." I'm like, "Well, what is she doing for this? What is she doing for that?" It's like, it's like saying like, "Oh, here's this physics PhD like in a group chat, like, oh, I just hired this physics PhD." I go, "Cool, like, do they know about black holes?" And they're like, "Well, not really, but like," I'm like, "Well, how do they not know about black holes? Like, how do they not know what the speed of light is? Like, why did they not know these basic answers to these things that like?" Because Brendan was trying to fix his like social media engagement, not telling us that the problem was that he bought a bunch of followers and therefore it scrambles your algorithm. So his consistent issue was he'd only reach 1% to 2% non-followers. When if you look at your own analytics,
yeah,
a post that gets pushed should be like 50% non-followers, whatever. Like not all the time, but like if a post, it just like would never happen that it would break beyond 3%. So I go, you don't have any community strikes, you don't have any, like it was a problem I was trying to solve for months. He's like, suddenly this girl comes in and solves it. And I outed her, not as a fraud, but like that Brendan misunderstood what he thought he was getting. And
yeah,
like,
it's where he said, 300 pages of the investigation. I've read it, and
that's a completely different story. That's a completely different story. I'm talking about like social media management.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh, look, she already fixed it. She fixed my non-follower engagement." And I go, "Brendan, she collabed a post with Teddy Swims, who has 3 million followers. Of course, there's going to be a million new non-follower reach. Like, you're a fucking idiot. Do you think she did some magic trick?" And then like, but she put us in a group chat because I was asking him questions that he couldn't answer. And he goes, "Let me loop you in a group chat." I asked her like 5 basic questions that end up with her having some version of like Ron Burgundy being like, "I have many leather-bound books at my house." Like she had to like be like, I am a business owner and I do this professionally and blah blah blah, like to like flex on me when I'm going like, what about this? What about this? I go, where are these? You say he has community guideline strikes. I just checked yesterday, he has none. So just explain to me like I'm an idiot. And she goes, "Well, I run this thing where I have a business making." I go, "That's amazing. I'm a guy who doesn't do anything. So maybe you could dumb it down so I can understand." And then Brendan abruptly ends the group chat, gets on my ass in a personal text and goes like, "You just made this woman of like this mother of 3 cry." Well, I'm like, that's first of all.
As if she's only got one kid, it would be not as bad. Like,
right. I go, first of all, bitch, I'm saving you from spending money on a woman who can't do my job better than me. But she walked into your fucking office with Instagram expert embroidered on her shirt, and your sucker ass falls for anybody who presents themselves with like the accoutrement of somebody with legitimacy. It's like, oh, he's a nice car, therefore he must be like good at finances. You know what I mean? Like he has that like child's mentality of like, look at the rich person with the monocle and the top hat,
but it's kind of funny to me. So you're saying that he's probably not in league with the sort of sophisticated swindlers that were Podcast One. Like he's probably just more Mark.
Was the one who let them into the business. Like he took the deal because he needed the cash infusion. So even though they might have lost out like once the stock price dipped because they were getting like cash plus stock plus this. Jim Cornette probably had the funds to be like, yeah, I'll see you in court, because that, like, if you have more capital and savings, you can afford to delay and get your full money back in court, pay your lawyer bills. Brendan didn't. Brendan, his business was about to go under, so he had to take the money.
Was it also a matter of like not wanting to admit that he got had? Allegedly, we're all talking,
Yeah, I mean, there's
allegedly.
always an element of like Brendan's ego, narcissism, and pathological lying and inability to even with the whole subreddit, he could use that to his advantage. He could make merch off of it. If I was him, I would go on there every day and interact with people and be like, yeah, hate on me all you fucking want. I'm making t-shirts that say, what are we doing here, bitch? And I'm making $1 million off you. So you can I'm giving you this dual option of you can keep hating on me and I'm going to keep making money, or you can stop. But he's trying to use these hardline techniques of trying to use hackers, trying to use tech companies to make bots that scrape all the potential policy violations and auto send it to Reddit. I was a part of this, and I have emails to back this up that I was part of. He hired me to make a coordinated campaign. He secretly tried to buy access to one of the Reddit administrators. Shut it down from the inside. He also made attempts to reach people high up at Reddit to get. So he made 4 separate attempts of varying legality, ranging from probably legal to highly illegal, because you're hiring black hat hackers.
It's probably malintent,
money in a duffel bag to some fucking retards, to Brian Count's opener, who promised him to hack Reddit and take down their page, and they never did. So
good for them. Good for them.
But that's how naive he is. In other words, he's so stupid. Where a normal smart person would see a business, it's I have 160,000 people who are talking about me every day. Let's monetize that bitch. But he's scared. He's scared of confronting any sort of joke about him. If your comment section was 90% negative, wouldn't you look at it and go, maybe some people have some legitimate criticisms. Maybe I can lean into this. Maybe I can interact with it. He goes, I don't read the comments, because he heard that from Joe Rogan. It's well, Joe Rogan's worth $1 billion. He doesn't need to read. He can afford to never read another comment in his life or do anything. You're not there. You need to read the comments because people are telling you the truth.
He does. Well, I'd argue that Joe Rogan probably does read the comments.
No. And I agree with you that he does. Brendan got the notion that he should be above reading the comments from Joe Rogan and uses that as an excuse to be I'm above. In his justification is, I'm above. The whole homeless cat terminology is reading comments is reading it's reading the opinion of a homeless person or a cat. That's where homeless cat comes from.
Yeah.
How he sees his fans is he's so beneath them, they're worthless.
Well, I think also that also one thing that occurred to me throughout what you were talking about with the with the behind the scenes stuff, is that I guess, why wouldn't Brendan just make Thick Boy a client of Bit Pixels? Wouldn't that be a lot easier than going through all this? I mean, because Bit Pixels allegedly does a pretty good job.
No, he does. He does work with Ben Pixels, because I remember I made a video. I know he works for Ben Pixels. One time I made a video where I didn't realize this, but the first time we ever interacted was over FaceTime, where Chappelle called me while they were live on TFAT-K, and I hadn't met Brendan yet. This was in November of 2020. Chappelle asked me to make a diet and workout plan for them. So I sat down for several hours and wrote out a detailed diet and workout plan. My mistake for making it detailed, because when you're communicating with Brendan, it needs to be do this, don't do this.
Yeah,
what sentence is, he's not going to read it. So
monosyllabic.
correct. He then goes on TFAT-K. I wasn't watching TFAT-K at the time, and he starts talking. He brings me up, and he's like, "Oh, can we talk about your boy?" Like, and they brought up some pictures of me to show me like that I'm ripped and have abs and all that stuff. He goes, "Great body." Doesn't know what he's talking about with the diet though. He sent us that diet isn't with what he's talking about. I'm like, I used that diet just this past few months to get down to body fat. What the fuck are you talking about? And he misquotes it. He goes, "Oh, well, it doesn't work because it's going to be." He puts 300 grams of carbs in the diet, and I was like, Chappelle's like, "Wait a second, let me call Mark. Like that can't be right. Like whatever. It wasn't about the carb thing, but he goes, this can't. Let me get Mark on the phone to explain because Chappelle knew that he couldn't defend it on his own. But he goes, gets me on the phone. So all I know is I'm getting a call. I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" And Chappelle's like, "I just got some. Oh, Brendan has some questions about the diet." And he's like, "Yeah, man, you put too many carbs in the diet." I go, "Well, it's 220 grams of carbs. That's considered on the threshold of low carbohydrate diets, especially for a guy who weighs as much as you. That's not ketogenic, but it's literally considered like at the high end of low carbohydrate diets. There's no way to get fat from eating like a few cups of rice every day when you're 270 pounds and eating and then you're also eating like 300 grams of protein a day." So his concept goes, "Oh, it's gonna make me fat. Oh, it doesn't work. Oh, I know diets." He starts going on this arrogant fucking tangent where he knows more than me, and I never saw any of that until like years later. I made a video response to it where I used the clip of him saying, "Oh, he put in 300 grams of carbs." And I go, "Here's what I actually said to him." It says, because we argue, I goes like, "I put in, oh, you gave me 300 grams." I go, "I think I put in 220. He goes, "No, you definitely put in 300. I'm like, "Okay." Like, because I'm sitting here going like, I don't have it in front of me. Was it a typo? Like, and I made a video using his clip and then showing my email and explaining it. And Bent Pixels fucking took it down because I used the footage.
I mean, I guess he's probably their best client because I mean he's just. But I wanted to also say something, and maybe we might have to do a follow up to this because I'm almost to my. I gotta get this is a radical proposition, but I often feel like everything people say about Brendan could equally be applied to his mentor, his Don, if you will, his Joe Rogan, because in much the same way, you have these guys who are, they think they know everything. They're not that great at comedy. They come from similar, sort of interests, and I did find it to be like so bizarre, especially from the lack of like authenticity. And the interesting thing I will say about Brendan though, he's almost too authentic to a fault, where he's like, I knew like the Gadoos thing, like that was a terrible thing to tell people that you put a guy through it.
But his mistake is he doesn't realize when he's telling a story that he's the villain. Oh, you don't realize you're the asshole. Like there's a whole Reddit devoted to like, am I the asshole? It's like he needs to put everything he ever talks about on that Reddit first, because people are like, no. So it turns out this funny story that you're telling, you're the psycho in this story who's bullying this fucking roommate and then throwing him through a glass door because you were eating his food. And he didn't. That means you're the asshole. The comparison of Rogan, I understand. However, I would say this. Rogan works way harder. Like, whatever you think about his comedy aside, Rogan actually works hard. Rogan actually bulldogged his way through comedy and like started with open mics, like landed a TV show. By all accounts, was like a super hard worker. Like Andy Dick talks about how Rogan would freak the fuck out of him when he was like high on set and like fucking around. Like Joe is a more serious, hardworking, kind of like driven, like intense and curious person. Like people's criticism, it's like, yeah, he doesn't know everything about everything, but he's also like, I don't listen to the Joe Rogan podcast to listen to Joe Rogan's opinions.
Yeah.
I listen to hear Neil deGrasse Tyson speak, or listen to the guests that he has on who is an expert, and listen to it through the lens of a guy who has intellectual limitations but is smart enough to ask some questions and express some basic curiosity. And I think that's where most people relate to him, is they go like, yeah, he kind of comes off as like an open-minded guy. He gets things wrong. Fame and a lot of money will distort your ability to like have a sense of humor about yourself, because when they do the Protect Our Parks podcast, like, he misses jokes. He has a hard time self-deprecating sometimes.
I love Mark Norman.
Mark Norman sometimes will rip on him, and Joe doesn't even like realize or can't respond to it. But look, he is a highly competitive person, and so I think, like, to me, for example, Shane Gillis is like what every comic wants to be, kind of like I always say, he's like the anti-Brendan Schaub. Like, he's like the inverse of Brendan Schaub, where like Brendan Schaub wants to be so bad a blue collar truck like guy, like genuine, like, you know, Midwest conservative, like everyman. I'm like, so Shane is actually blue collar as fuck, actually owns like 2 pairs of pants, actually owns 1 like pair of New Balance, doesn't give a fuck about how he dresses, drinks fucking Budweiser, like, has blue collar street cred, doesn't have a writer. Like, there's this interview with Schultz that he went on Flagrant, and they were like, "You're not like, what's your writer?" He's like, "I don't have a writer." They're like, "What? Oh my god!" Like, he's like, under guy who doesn't give a fuck. Brendan wishes he was that guy so fucking bad, but he simply can't pull it off because he's too vain, narcissistic, insecure. And Shane is actually smart. Shane studies history. Shane Shane played D1 football. He's like, he actually played D1 football rather than Brendan, who was like got like a pity scholarship for 1 year. And if you watch his highlights, it's like it's him running around on special teams for a few plays doing fuck nothing. And he thought he was going to play in the NFL. He was like a terrible D1 football player who did nothing and was like, I'm going to make it to the NFL. No, you're not. What?
You know what? Yeah. You know what won me over for St. Gillis? Was when I heard him say he likes Goya. I'm like, all right, I'm in. Francisco Goya, the painter who, you know, I mean, Goya was like known for doing early in his career very, very conventional, beautiful art of the Spanish royal family. But then when he went deaf, he did some of his best work that was like very dark, and anybody who was like that, I'm down for, you know. And but it's kind of,
I appreciate that too, where people start out like you know, Picasso. He started out as a hyper realist, so people don't understand. He didn't just jump to Cubism. This guy was a master of ultra realistic drawings and paintings, and then developed a completely unique style. And so I have the utmost respect for people like that who master the traditional art and then they find their own form. They don't just go, I made some shit up and it's original and I'm a genius. No, you're not. You don't even know how to do the basics.
Well, and I mean, it's funny too, because I love Picasso's father was a brilliant painter in his own right too, and that was. But I wish we didn't have to wrap this up, because there's a Michael Knowles tweet where it's like he shares a picture of one of Picasso's early childhood paintings when he's learning to paint, and he shares like one of his abstract pieces, and he's like, why would a guy like this who can paint like this do that? I'm like, you moron, it's because it's heart. Like, people don't look at Guernica and say,
is Michael Knowles the conservative commentator?
Yeah, he's like the third string Matt Waltz. He's like
right.
He looks like he looks like the screen guy.
What a brain dead take, because it's just like you fundamentally misunderstand the idea of, like, so for example, as a screenwriter, it's like you have to learn the basics and you have to learn all the rules. Get people who are like, oh, I'm trying to do this different thing, and like like make it unconventional and weird and different. And I go, you didn't learn how to write a traditional 3-act, like standard Hollywood movie. Do that first, because it's actually way more difficult than you think. Like drawing a hyper realistic drawing or painting is way more difficult than most people think. You can't start with the abstract because like there's so much skill development that goes into, but you prove yourself that you go like, look, I could do this. So it's more impressive when you go, I'm doing something totally original with the knowledge and the proof that I've mastered the traditional way of doing things. Therefore, what I'm doing is an actual innovation. And if you can't see that, you're fucking stupid.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and I think ironically, one of the abstract painting was Guernica, which is like, you know, people, anybody who would look at Guernica and say, oh, well, the shapes don't make sense. I'm like, if you know what Guernica was, like, the chaos of what that was, like, but it's kind of funny because I think this kind of stuff is like fundamental to why I'm not a conservative, because I'm a proud degenerate artist. I want to truly put things and make people uncomfortable. Like I don't like Maria Abramovich, but I think sometimes when people freak out about, do you know Maria Abramovich?
She's a performance artist.
Yeah, she does real gory shit, and the conservatives are always like, "Oh my God, this is like sick."
Well, so here's an interesting fact. Do you know that conservatives, if you can detect somebody's political leanings if you show them a bowl of maggots? Conservatives have a higher disgust response. Conservatives also tend to have greater black and white thinking and more literal, concrete thinking. Therefore, when you're looking at Guernica, you're a conservative type of brain, a more black and white, a more literal brain. And I don't mean to like make this, because again, not every conservative is these things. I'm just saying there's a loose correlation of all these things, because like seeing strictly black and white tends to see simply right and wrong easier, and kind of like, this is a good painting, this is a bad painting. And the intuitive and the metaphorical value and the deeper interpretive meaning of things is more difficult for people who have literal black and white, yes, no, down kind of thinking brain. So a somebody like that who goes, if this isn't hyper realistic, it's bad. They can't understand the abstract value of the art because they can't process the metaphor of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and what they don't realize is you can do both. I mean, I love Vermeer, but I know I'm never going to be as good as Vermeer, but Vermeer only did like 20 or 40 paintings and like very limited amount. And like, but I can still appreciate the technical prowess. But I wish we might have to do this again, because this took a really awesome turn. And
I'm happy to do it again anytime, man. No worries about the time constraints. We can do it again whenever you want. So
okay, and thank you so much for making time. And do you want to tell people where they can find you?
Yeah, pretty much at Mark Harley across all platforms. I mainly use Instagram. I'm trying to grow my YouTube and my Twitter and Facebook, but if you look up at Harley, you know, TikTok. But if you want to get in direct contact with me, DM me on IG. You know, if you want to say what's up, if you want fitness advisor coaching, you know, I offer that through my Instagram page. But also I just, you know, I connect with my fans mainly via IG. If you write me, I'll write back. And we can get it on and popping. So
awesome. Mark Harley, everybody hit him up. And everybody likewise, if you like, subscribe to my YouTube, because capitalism is something I'm forced to participate in. Subscribe. I just want to say also one last thing on Rogan. My big problem with Rogan as a pro wrestling fan is he said all pro wrestling fans are retarded. And my response is, I was retarded before I started watching wrestling. Thank you very much.
Yeah, same
right.
here. I think in one of these things, when I started studying screenwriting at the age of 21, what I realized is, as you learn the principles of storytelling that are inherent, of course, to be a master of screenwriting, storytelling is everything. And the story involved in the WWE and all pro wrestling is what the UFC is built off. That's what makes the UFC compelling. It's not two guys beating each other up. It's the narrative and the story that is told that the UFC does better than every other promotion on earth, but that the WWE was the first thing to start and selling. Like, you have to appreciate the brilliance of a compelling narrative and wrap your mind around the difficulty of telling a long-term soap opera that happens to be told through men who are juiced out of their minds in Speedos, but it is a long-form narrative storytelling device.
And who work, 40 weeks a year, who don't take fucking, which it's like, that kind of bothered me. Like Rogan said, he respects people with a great work ethic. Well, if you like people with a great work ethic, pro wrestlers are like,
these guys, stop, man. I didn't really, as a kid, you kind of don't really like wrap your mind around it. It's like you see an event or whatever. It's like these guys are doing hundreds of shows a year, throwing their bodies around. So like the idea of if it's fake or not, it's like, yeah, the outcome is determined, but they're taking hits, they're taking slams to their body. Do a fucking backflip off a ring and tell me that there's no potential that you can break your ankle if you fuck it up. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean, I tell people, of course it's not real. If you thought it was real, you're stupid. Like, that's more of a tell on the other person that they would think it's real. Like,
it's not real.
Yeah, like
you go watch movies too. You watch Jurassic Park. You think people have fucking dinosaurs in their backyard too? You fucking.
I told people at the time, Will and Grace, Thomas Gibson ain't gay, but he's still doing Will and Grace. But also it's like, I just have infinite respect for it. But I just want to make one more Brendan Schaub joke. It's like, dude, you don't want to call yourself a beast of a dad. You know who's a beast of a dad? Chris Benoit.
Oh my God.
All right. Anyway, on that note, I've been the Joe Eurell podcast. Have a great night. Thank you, everybody.
Great closer, buddy.
Thank you.